Welcome to Dorcas Fashion Academy. In this video, I will teach you how to sew a one-step buttonhole.
In this video, I will be teaching you how to use a one-step buttonhole. So imagine that this was a fold of our blouse or our little dress or something. So we decide how many buttonholes we would want. So I'm just going to do a little mark on either side, imagining that this is the top and the bottom of the dress or wherever we want our buttons. So I want to have 5 buttons. So because it's 21, I'm going to have half, and then 5 1/4 and 5 1/4. Now normally I do this either with a pen or a chalk, one of those pens that goes when you press, but I'm doing it here in pencil so that you can have a look. Now it's very important that when you prepare for your buttonholes, you look at where you want your button to lie, because it's no good doing the buttonhole very close to the edge. Otherwise, when you do it up, half of your button is going to be outside of your fabric. So I would like to have my buttonhole like 1/2 centimeter from the edge, in which case my buttonhole would have to start somewhere around here. What I've done is I've used the holes in my button to mark where it would be sewn. So that's where I'm going to start my buttonhole. So this is just slightly over 1 centimeter. And this is the beginning of my buttonhole. This you can do with pins, or you can mark with a chalk. So now I'm going to position my presser foot on my sewing machine. I am now going to change my presser foot, and I am adding my button to the back. This makes sure that the buttonhole that I do comes up to the size of my button. We clip and clip our presser foot and add our buttonhole. In these one-step buttonholers, we have to lower the lever and we have to push it back. Make sure you don't start pushing backwards and forwards, because otherwise it stays in a circuit, making one size buttonhole. So we're going to start doing our sample. If you look at the opening of our presser foot, this is where we have to align our mark to our presser foot, making sure that they're both in the correct place. And then holding the threads from behind, I dig in my needle. You have to control this. Although it makes it all in one step, it sews on its own, you have to control that it doesn't go sideways or anything. So I'm going to start. When it gets to the end, the presser foot pushes the lever forward, making the whole buttonhole start sewing backwards. This is our first buttonhole done. Obviously we're doing it in another color so you see properly, but you would do it in the same color as your fabric. Again, I'm going to align my little mark, holding the thread down and pushing the lever backwards. I start doing my second buttonhole. Buttonhole number 2. If you wish, you can continue doing the buttonholes without cutting the thread. Always make sure that you push the lever backwards, because otherwise it won't do your buttonhole. So this is it. This is how you do your buttonholes in a one-step buttonholer. So now you can cut these threads directly because they've been stitched a couple of times in the same place. You really don't need to tie knots. You just can cut them off. And now I'm going to teach you how to cut them. There's various ways. We use different ways depending on the fabric. Of course, you can just fold and cut, which is the more standardized method. But sometimes either your scissors are not that sharp or the fabric is too thick. We also use the blade, which we love to use, but a lot of students are very scared. Why? Because obviously the blade can slip and you can end up with no buttonhole. So if you place a pin at the bottom, we can cut more confidently that we're not going to go and cut through the buttonholes. This is another method to use when you're using an unpicker, which you'd use it the other way around. This way you wouldn't go out of the buttonhole and tear the whole buttonhole. We don't particularly like the unpicker. I think it's a bit more dangerous, but it's either the blade or the scissors, depending on what you prefer. So these are our buttonholes ready for our buttons. If you have any questions, please ask us and we'll just try and answer anything, any doubt that you may have. No. So you may be wondering how you're going to sew your buttons that match up your buttonholes. So this is the way we do it. Women close from right to left. So this one would be the top one. And obviously you will have some sort of guide of how much overlap you have left originally. But either way, this is how we do it. We put the two folded edges together and match up our fabric. And I'm going to pin at the end of the buttonhole, because this is really where the button will lie once it's done up. So I place a pin on each of my buttonholes. And on the other side, you will see that I've got my pin sticking out. I'm going to do a little mark, and I will be sewing my buttons on this mark. And because when I did my buttonholes, I made sure that it was within my fabric, my buttonhole won't be left outside of the fabric once it's done up. So each of these marks will be where I will be sewing my buttonhole. I use double thread. This way it's stronger and you have to go around it less times. And I start with my knot in the front. This buttonhole has got 4 holes and I'm just going to do a crisscross. So in, whoops, in and out to the opposite hole, and now I go from behind. I sew it through all the layers and I go in and out, first of all through the same 2 holes across, and then I go the opposite way. With a few times that you go in and out, it'll be secure enough, at least for the normal standard sewing of a button. For the finishing, I would just go in twice and leave my needle half in, half out, and the thread coming from the fabric, not from the needle, from the fabric, 1, 2 and 3, and pull, and this creates a knot, and with this your button is secure enough. So 1 button is done, and what I recommend is to do 1 up, check it, and then continue sewing, because there's nothing worse that you finish all the buttons and then you have some sort of crease or something in the middle. So do 1 up, continue sewing, do the next 1 up, continue sewing until you get to the end. This way you don't have to take off all the buttons if one of them is wrong. Okay, so this is now our buttons and buttonholes. So as you can see, we close up well, and always women the right over the left. This is the way it would be as if I was wearing it. So I hope you've learned something today.
Thank you for watching. If you like our videos, please give us a like, and we would love to hear your comments and requests.